Okay, thank you. So when you registered to attend this event, we asked you to share your biggest content marketing struggle with us. And a lot of you talked about authenticity. How do I ensure that my content is coming across as authentic to my audience? You've noticed they're going to be short sessions today. We're not burying the lead, so I'm going to start with the main takeaway. Your most authentic content comes from ensuring that you're letting the subject of your story speak for themselves. Really, what you're doing is approaching your storytelling people first to ensure that genuine representation, connection, and purpose are encouraging your audience to buy into the story that you're telling and the content that you're selling. So, what does that look like in practice? Well, for example, I oversee the Globe Women's Collective, which is our editorial vertical on women in work. As you can imagine, we tell a lot of stories that profile women leaders from across Canada, and we do a lot of practical service that features women experts who give advice. But it's not enough for women to just be the subjects of the story. They also have to be the creators, because whoever tells the story shapes it from their own perspective. Now, 100% of our writer roster is women, and 50% are BIPOC, because if they're all white cisgender women, that too is going to shape the stories that we tell, the way that we tell them. It's really important to remember that your storytellers will approach the same topic differently. So representation has to permeate the entire production process. Now, when Sunnybrook Hospital Foundation came to us and said, we want to tell a story about the Gary Hurwitz Brain Sciences Center. The center is still under construction. It has never treated a single patient. So we're tasked with figuring out, how do we identify a storyteller that's going to connect the audience with a center that doesn't actually exist yet? So you've got the stories on at the right of the screen. We focused on telling the stories of former Sunnybrook patients who had been treated for brain injuries and brain illnesses, the sorts of things that the Gary Hurwitz Brain Sciences Center is one day going to treat. And by doing so, we tapped into the emotion that's going to forge that connection. We ensured we're highlighting the overwhelming gratitude, the tension of those experiences. We didn't focus on the doctors too significantly. We definitely didn't talk about asking for donations to make sure that the center arises. The goal is very much to connect the audience to the purpose for the brand service. And we did the same thing with the stories on the left side of the screen for Trillium Gift of Life, which is the organ donation governing agency for Ontario. Again, we can't connect our audience with organ donors, even though the goal is to encourage the audience who's reading the story to register as a donor. So we connect them with organ recipients like Krista and Shilpa on the screen. Their story connects the audience to the brand's purpose and service. Now, what happens when your target audience and your speaker isn't the same? If you do it right, your audience shouldn't have to see themselves in your content in order to connect with it. Instead, they can connect to the speaker's passion, their experience, their community. And that's what we did with Indigenous Tourism Alberta and Explore Edmonton. They wanted to encourage Canadians to visit and experience Indigenous tourism in the region. So, authentic representation. We hired an Indigenous writer, photographer, musician, illustrator. And then we let their experiences at the tourism destinations shape the way we went about telling the story. As a result, we brought our storytellers in community with the audience and gave them space to connect. So again, authentic storytelling is about representation, connection, and purpose. And a really great way to gut check is to ask yourself the 3 questions on screen. Whose story is this? Are we making space for them to tell it themselves? And how can we shape the story in a way that no one else can?